The assignment. The low hum of the lecture hall's environmental system barely masked the nervous clicking and whistling coming from the assembled cadets. Sergeant Maya Chen stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, watching as the last few students filed in. At 5'7", she was dwarfed by most of the aliens in the room, but not a single one of them doubted her authority. "Settle down," she said, her voice carrying without effort. The clicking and whistling immediately ceased. Maya was the only human instructor at the Galactic Survival Academy, an institution established after the Andromeda Accords to train multi-species emergency response teams. Some considered her appointment a political gesture. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, but her record spoke for itself. The holographic display behind her flickered to life, showing a swirling white and blue planet. "This," she said, "is Niflheim 9. A collective groan rose from the class. Maya allowed herself a small smile. "I see some of you are familiar with our destination. For those who aren't, Niflheim 9 is a Class 4 ice planet in the outer rim. Surface temperatures average -70 degrees Celsius. Wind speeds regularly exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Precipitation is constant." She tapped her wrist console, and the display shifted to show a topographical map crisscrossed with violent storm systems. "This will be your final survival test. Teams will be dropped at designated points with standard emergency kits. Your objective is simple: survive for 72 hours and reach the extraction point." Igloo, a towering Ardulian with crystalline appendages, raised a limb. "Instructor, what are the parameters for technological assistance?" "Standard GSA regulations, Level 2 energy shields, thermal regulators, and emergency beacons. Nothing more advanced." From the back row, a voice clicked in the distinct pattern of Ventraxian speech. "Why not Level 3? The conditions warranted." Maya fixed Cadet Zik with a steady gaze. "Because, Cadet, in real emergency situations, you don't get to choose your equipment. You work with what you have." The room fell silent again. Maya continued through the briefing, outlining drop zones, communication protocols, and emergency procedures. As she spoke, she noted the reactions of her students. The Ardulians looked confident. Their crystalline bodies had evolved in sub-zero environments. The Ventraxians seemed anxious, their sensitive exoskeletons poorly suited for extreme cold. The Medusan representatives maintained their usual stoic demeanor, though their tentacles writhed slightly faster than normal. "Teams will be assigned by lottery," Maya concluded. "No switching allowed. Report to the hangar at 600 tomorrow." Dismissed. As the cadets filed out, Commander Thrix entered from a side door. The Centaurian administrator moved with the grace typical of his species, forelegs carrying him smoothly across the floor. "Sergeant Chen," he said, voice resonating from his chest cavity. "A word." Maya nodded, gathering her materials. "Commander, the Academy Board is concerned about this exercise. Niflheim 9 has claimed lives before, which is precisely why we need to train there," Maya replied. "The galaxy is not a safe place, Commander. Neither is Earth, for that matter." Thrix's secondary eyes blinked independently of his primary pair. "Some board members question the wisdom of placing our cadets in genuine danger, particularly with a human instructor." Maya stiffened slightly. "Because humans lack the natural adaptations of other species. Because humans have a reputation for unnecessary risk-taking." Maya smiled thinly. "Yet somehow we survived on a single planet for thousands of years before developing space travel. We must have been doing something right." Thrix made a sound that might have been a sigh in a human. "Just ensure everyone returns, Sergeant. No heroics. No promises, Commander. Heroics are sometimes necessary." After Thrix departed, Maya accessed her personal console and reviewed the roster for tomorrow's drop. 24 cadets, representing 12 species. Most had never experienced temperatures below freezing. Several came from planets where technology had eliminated the concept of wilderness survival centuries ago. Her console pinged with a message from Earth, weather data for her hometown in Minnesota. -20 degrees Celsius. Heavy snow. Maya smiled. Her family would be gathering around the fireplace now, telling stories as they had for generations. She closed the display and headed to her quarters. Tomorrow would be interesting. The next morning, Maya stood in the hangar bay as her cadets checked their equipment. Each wore the standard GSA survival suit, a marvel of multi-species engineering that adjusted to the wearer's biology. The suits were designed to protect against extreme environments, but they weren't infallible. "Listen up," Maya called. "Your drop pods have been programmed with your assigned locations. You'll land approximately 10 kilometers from your teammates. Your first task is to reunite. Your second is to survive. Any questions?" Trexol, a Medusan whose translucent skin rippled with neural activity, stepped forward. "Instructor, what if our equipment fails?" "Then you adapt," Maya replied simply. "That's the point of this exercise." She watched as the cadets boarded their drop pods, noting the mixture of confidence and apprehension on their faces. Her own pod waited at the end of the line, identical to the others. She had requested no special accommodations, though Commander Thrix had offered them. The drop sequence began, pods launching at 30-second intervals. Maya strapped herself in and felt the familiar surge of acceleration as her pod ejected from a hangar. The descent through Niflheim 9's atmosphere was turbulent, the pod bucking and shaking as it encountered layers of storm systems. Maya watched the external sensors with interest. The conditions were even worse than predicted. A level 5 blizzard was developing in the northern hemisphere, precisely where they were headed. Perfect, she thought. The cadets would need every lesson she'd taught them. Her pod's thrusters fired automatically, slowing her descent as the ground approached. With a muffled thump, she landed in a deep snowdrift. The hatch hissed open, and a wall of cold slammed into her. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the frigid air burn her lungs despite the suit's filtration system. She climbed out and secured her pack, checking her locator. According to the display, her 3 teammates were scattered across the region, just as planned. The landscape around her was a study in whites and blues, snow-covered plains stretching to the horizon, broken only by jagged ice formations. The wind howled, driving snow horizontally across the terrain. Visibility was less than 50 meters and deteriorating rapidly. Maya adjusted her goggles and started walking. The suit's exoskeleton assisted her movements, preventing her from sinking too deeply into the snow. According to her briefing, she would find her first teammate, Cadet Zik, approximately 3 kilometers northeast. As she trudged through the deepening snow, Maya reflected on the irony of her situation. Here she was, a human from Earth, considered a technological backwater by galactic standards, teaching survival techniques to species that had mastered interstellar travel thousands of years before humans had invented the wheel. Yet none of them knew how to build a fire without a plasma igniter. None of them understood the insulating properties of snow or the behavioral patterns of predators. They relied on technology for everything, which made them vulnerable in ways they didn't even recognize. Maya intended to change that, one cadet at a time. If they survived this test, they would never look at primitive human methods the same way again. The storm intensified as she walked, the wind speed increasing to nearly hurricane force. Maya's suit sensors began flashing warnings. Temperature dropping, visibility near zero. Ahead, a larger ice formation loomed, offering some shelter from the wind. She altered course, deciding to establish a temporary camp and wait for the worst to pass. As she approached the ice formation, her comm unit crackled with static. "Instructor Chen," came a panicked voice. "My suit's failing. Environmental controls offline." "Cannot." The transmission cut off. Maya checked her locator. It was Zik, less than half a kilometer away. She adjusted her heading and increased her pace, pushing against the howling wind. "Hold on, cadet," she muttered. "Let's see if those primitive human methods can save you now." Descent into frost. The blizzard grew more ferocious with each passing minute. Maya's heads-up display flickered with interference as she trudged through snowdrifts that now reached her waist. The wind cut visibility to mere meters, ice crystals pelting her faceplate like miniature projectiles. She checked her locator again. Zik's signal pulsed weakly, indicating both his position and his suit's deteriorating status. The Ventraxian cadet was close now, perhaps 200 meters ahead, but in these conditions, that might as well be kilometers. "Zik," she called over the comm channel. "I'm approaching your position. Signal if you can hear me." Static answered her, punctuated by clicks that might have been Ventraxian speech or just interference. Maya pushed on, leaning into the howling wind. The exoskeleton components of her suit whined with the effort, power reserves dropping faster than they should. She noted the drain with concern but didn't slow her pace. Finally, she spotted a dark shape huddled against an ice formation. Zik's environmental suit was nearly black against the white landscape. The Ventraxian lay curled in a fetal position, his exoskeleton segments drawn tight against his body in a defensive posture. "Cadet," Maya said, kneeling beside him. "Status report." Zik's compound eyes flickered dimly. His mandibles clicked weakly. S-suit malfunction. Thermal regulation F failing. Internal temperature dropping. Maya quickly assessed the situation. Ventraxians were arthropod descended, with poor internal temperature regulation. Without functioning thermal support, Zik would slip into torpor and eventually die. She accessed the diagnostic panel on his suit. The power core was intact, but the thermal distribution system had shorted out, likely damaged during the descent. No quick fix was possible. "Can you stand?" she asked. Zik's limbs trembled. "N negative." Maya made a decision. "I'm going to construct a shelter. You need to hold on a little longer." The standard procedure is to activate emergency beacon. Zik clicked through chattering mandibles. "And wait hours for extraction while you freeze." Maya shook her head. "Not an option. Watch and learn, cadet." She unclipped the compact entrenching tool from her belt and began excavating the packed snow. Rather than digging downward, she cut blocks from the surface, stacking them in a circular pattern. Zik watched through half-closed compound eyes, clearly skeptical despite his desperate situation. "Igloo, what are you doing?" he managed to ask. "Building an igloo," Maya replied without pausing her work. "An ancient earth shelter design. The snow will insulate us from the wind and cold." "P primitive," Zik muttered. Maya smiled behind her faceplate. "Effective," she corrected. "Sometimes the old ways are best." She worked methodically, cutting each block with precision, angling them slightly inward to create a dome. The structure took shape rapidly, small at first, but growing as she added layers. She had built igloos since childhood during winter camping trips with her family, and her hands remembered the techniques even as the brutal wind threatened to topple her work. Within 40 minutes, a respectable dome stood before them, the entrance facing away from the prevailing wind. Maya carefully cut the final block, the keystone, and placed it at the apex of the dome. "Time to move inside," she told Zik, helping the weakened Ventraxian to his feet. "Careful now." The interior of the igloo was cramped but sufficient for their needs. Maya positioned Zik in the center, then crawled in herself, pulling her emergency pack behind her. She sealed the entrance with loose snow, leaving only a small ventilation hole near the top. Almost immediately, the howling of the wind diminished to a distant moan. The temperature difference was subtle but noticeable, already a few degrees warmer than outside. "Now for some heat," Maya said, opening her pack. She pulled out a small chemical heater, activated it with a twist, and placed it on the floor between them. The device began to glow orange, radiating precious warmth. Zik's compound eyes dilated slightly as warmth began to penetrate his chilled exoskeleton. How long will this structure hold?" "Long enough," Maya assured him. "The snow hardens after construction, especially with our body heat. If maintained properly, it could last days." She checked her comm unit. attempting to contact the other cadets. 2 more signals registered on her locator: Grefk, a Medusan, and Lan, an Ardulian. Both were moving slowly in their direction, their signals showing signs of equipment stress. "We'll have company soon," she told Zik. "Your teammates are converging on our position." The Ventraxian's mandibles clicked in what might have been relief or disbelief. "Their suits are failing too." "Advanced technology, same basic flaws," Maya replied. "This storm is generating electromagnetic interference that's affecting power distribution systems. Your suits were designed for efficiency, not redundancy." She checked Zik's vital signs through her wrist display. His core temperature was stabilizing, though still dangerously low. The chemical heater's output was helping, but not enough. "I need to increase the ambient temperature," she murmured, more to herself than to Zik. She reached into her pack again and removed several small items: a folding metal container, a handful of chemical fuel tablets, and an archaic-looking fire striker. Zik watched with growing interest. "What are those?" "Backup systems," Maya said. "When tech fails, simplicity prevails." She arranged the fuel tablets in the container, struck the striker several times, and a small flame sputtered to life. Within moments, the flame had caught and steadied, casting a warm orange glow throughout the igloo. The heat was modest but real, and more importantly, it was sustainable. Zik's compound eyes reflected the flickering light. "Fire," he said, the word sounding strange in his clicking dialect. "Actual combustion. I've only seen it in historical archives. Most inhabited worlds moved beyond combustion centuries ago," Maya acknowledged. "But fire has kept humans alive for millennia. Sometimes the oldest tools are the most reliable." The small flame raised the temperature inside the igloo significantly. Maya carefully monitored the ventilation hole, ensuring that smoke escaped while minimizing heat loss. Zik's vitals improved steadily, his exoskeleton segments relaxing from their protective curl. "Feeling better?" Maya asked. "Yes," Zik admitted, "though I would not have believed it possible without technological intervention." Maya smiled. "That's lesson 1. Technology is a tool, not a solution. True survival depends on understanding principles, not devices." Before Zik could respond, Maya's comm unit crackled. "Instructor Chen," came a strained voice, the words distorted by the distinctive harmonics of Medusan speech. "Cadet Grefk requesting assistance. My environmental controls are failing, and I've lost contact with the others." "I've got your signal, Grefk," Maya responded. "You're approximately 1 kilometer from my position. I've established shelter with Cadet Zik. Can you reach us?" "Affirmative," Grefk replied, "but my mobility is compromised. Medusan physiology is not adapted to these temperatures." "Understood. Maintain your current heading. I'll meet you halfway." Maya turned to Zik. "I need to retrieve your teammate. Will you be all right alone?" The Ventraxian's mandibles clicked nervously, but he nodded. "The shelter is adequate. I will maintain it until your return." "Good. Keep the fire going, but don't add more than 1 tablet at a time. Too much heat too quickly could destabilize the snow structure." Maya donned her helmet and prepared to exit the igloo. As she moved toward the entrance, Zik's voice stopped her. "Instructor, thank you." Maya nodded. "Thank me when we're all safely back on the station. This test has just begun." She crawled through the entrance tunnel and back into the howling storm. The contrast was immediate and brutal, from the relative warmth of the igloo to the bone-chilling cold of Niflheimine's surface. Her suit's thermal regulators strained to compensate, and warning indicators flickered across her HUD. Maya oriented herself toward Grefk's signal and began trudging through the snow. The storm had intensified, if that was possible, visibility now reduced to almost nothing. She navigated primarily by her locator, placing one foot carefully in front of the other. Halfway to Grefk's position, her comm unit picked up another distress signal. It was Lan, the Ardulian cadet. "Emergency transmission to any GSA personnel. The crystalline being's voice resonated. Suit malfunction. Shield generators offline. Thermal systems compromised. Requesting immediate extraction. Cadet Lan, this is Instructor Chen, Maya responded. Extraction is impossible in current conditions. I'm tracking your position. Hold tight. Instructor. Lan's voice was strained. Ardulians can withstand cold, but not this type of storm. The crystalline resonance from the ice formations is causing cellular disruption. I need shelter immediately. Maya checked her locator. Lan was moving toward her position from the west, while Grefk approached from the east. Both were approximately equidistant now. Change of plan, she decided. Both of you, continue toward my signal. I'll meet you at the convergence point and guide you to shelter. She altered her course accordingly, pushing through snowdrifts that now reached her chest in places. The exoskeleton components of her suit were the only things keeping her moving, and even they were showing strain. Servos grinding as ice formed in the joints. 20 minutes of grueling progress brought her to a slight rise in the terrain. From this vantage point, she could just make out two figures approaching, one floating a few inches above the snow, tentacles waving weakly, the other trudging forward with the distinctive crystalline gleam of an Ardulian. Maya activated her suit's emergency beacon, sending a focused pulse toward the cadets. Both figures adjusted their course toward her. Grefk reached her first, the Medusan's translucent body pulsing with weakening bioluminescence. Medusans were semi-aquatic beings, and their bodies contained high concentrations of water. In these temperatures, that was a death sentence without proper protection. Instructor. Grefk's voice was faint, transmitted directly through neural signals rather than audible speech. My cellular integrity is failing. Freezing has begun in my outer membranes. Stay with me, cadet, Maya urged, supporting the Medusan's weight as Lan approached. The Ardulian looked slightly better, the crystalline structure of their body more resistant to cold, but frost had formed between the jointed segments, restricting movement. Instructor Chen, Lan greeted her, voice resonating through their crystal structure. Your intervention is timely. My systems are approaching critical failure. We need to move quickly, Maya said. I've established shelter approximately half a kilometer from here. Follow exactly in my footsteps. I've already plotted the most stable path. She led the way, breaking trail through the snow, constantly checking behind to ensure both cadets were keeping pace. Grefk moved with increasing difficulty, their levitation abilities failing as their body temperature dropped. Lan helped the Medusan, supporting them with one crystalline arm. When they finally reached the igloo, Maya was relieved to see that it remained intact, with a faint glow visible through the snow blocks indicating that Zik had maintained the fire. She helped the exhausted cadets through the entrance tunnel, then followed them inside. The interior of the igloo was noticeably warmer than when she had left. Zik had arranged reflecting panels from his emergency kit to maximize the fire's heat, and had even begun melting snow for drinking water. Cadet, Maya acknowledged with approval. Well done. Zik's mandibles clicked in what might have been pride. I applied the principles you demonstrated. Heat conservation through reflected radiation. Maya helped Grefk and Lan settle near the fire. The Medusan's translucent tissues began to slowly thaw, bioluminescence strengthening as circulation improved. Lan positioned themselves to allow the ice between their segments to melt gradually. The structure is surprisingly effective, Lan observed, crystalline voice vibrating with curiosity. Simple in design, yet functionally superior to our failed technological solutions. Simplicity is resilience, Maya said, checking her supplies. 4 of us can survive here for days if necessary. She distributed emergency rations, nutrient capsules designed to be compatible with all standard metabolisms. As the cadets consumed them, Maya accessed her comm unit again, scanning for other signals. The remainder of their classmates were scattered across the region, many showing signs of equipment failure. Listen up, she addressed her 3 students. This storm isn't letting up anytime soon. More of your classmates will be in trouble. Once you're stabilized, we need to expand our shelter and prepare to take in others. Expand. Grek's neural voice pulsed with confusion. How? Maya smiled. The same way we built this one block at a time. She reached for her entrenching tool. Time for your first practical lesson in survival architecture. Who's ready to learn how to build an igloo? Good, Maya approved. Put that engineering training to use. Over the next several hours, more cadets arrived in varying states of distress. 2 Nixilians, their scaled bodies dangerously cold, a Quarian whose respiratory apparatus had nearly frozen solid, and another Medusan who required immediate thermal intervention. By the 18th hour of the storm, 15 cadets sheltered within the expanded Igloo complex. The structure now featured 6 interconnected chambers around a central hub, with carefully designed ventilation shafts and reinforced walls. It was an impressive feat of engineering, born from necessity and guided by ancient human knowledge. Maya moved through the chambers, checking on her students. Most had recovered from their initial exposure, though a few still showed signs of cold stress. More importantly, the shock of technology failure had worn off, replaced by a cautious appreciation for their current circumstances. In the central hub, she found Zik and several others huddled in discussion. Instructor, the Ventraxian called as she approached. We've been analyzing the shelter design. The thermal efficiency is remarkable for such simple materials. Sometimes simple is best, Maya replied, settling beside them. What have you observed? Lan extended a crystalline limb, projecting a rudimentary holographic model of their shelter, one piece of technology that still functioned. The layered wall structure creates an insulation gradient. Heat from occupants is retained while preventing outside cold from penetrating. And the ventilation system, added one of the Centaurians, allows for proper air exchange without significant heat loss. The angled shafts create a natural convection current. Maya nodded, pleased by their analysis. Now you're thinking like survivors. Understanding the principles behind the techniques is as important as the techniques themselves. An Exilian cadet, scales still dull from cold exposure, raised a clawed hand. But why weren't we taught this? Our curriculum focuses on equipment maintenance and technological solutions. Because, Maya explained, the Galactic Survival Academy was founded by species that solved environmental challenges through technology thousands of years ago. You've evolved beyond the need for such primitive knowledge until that technology fails. Humans never abandon these skills, Zik observed. Despite your technological advancement, we learned the hard way, Maya confirmed. Earth's climate crisis in the 21st century taught us that resilience comes from diversity of methods, not singular reliance on any one approach. We maintain our connection to traditional knowledge even as we embrace innovation. The conversation was interrupted by a crackling transmission from Maya's comm unit. GSA Shuttle Alpha to ground teams, came a distorted voice. Storm conditions preventing direct extraction. Forecasts indicate continued severe weather for minimum 36 hours. Maintain shelter and conserve resources. Extraction will proceed when conditions permit. Maya acknowledged the transmission, then looked around at her students. You heard that. We've got at least another day and a half here. We'll need more food, one of the Medusans noted. Current supplies are insufficient for prolonged shelter occupation. Maya smiled. Then it's time for Lesson 2, Resource Acquisition in Hostile Environments. She pulled out her pack and removed several compact tools, a collapsible probe, a small sieve, and what appeared to be a primitive hand drill. Nifline 9 has a surprising amount of life beneath its surface, she explained. Microorganisms thrive in the snow layers, and larger creatures burrow beneath the ice. With proper knowledge, we can safely supplement our rations. The cadets gathered closer, eyes and various sensory appendages fixed on the unfamiliar tools. Their expressions ranged from skepticism to curiosity, but all were attentive. Who wants to learn how to ice fish? Maya asked. By the 24th hour, their shelter had become a hub of activity. The structure had been further expanded and reinforced, with specialized chambers for food preparation, rest, and equipment maintenance. 23 cadets now occupy the complex. Nearly the entire class had found their way to Maya's shelter as their own technological solutions failed. In the central chamber, Maya supervised as teams rotated through different survival tasks. Some worked on expanding the shelter further, others maintained the heating systems, while a third group processed the surprising bounty they had harvested from beneath the ice. Zik approached her, mandibles clicking with newfound confidence. The nutrient extraction from the ice organisms is proceeding efficiently. We've developed a filtration system using salvaged components from our failed equipment. Improvisation. Maya nodded approvingly. The cornerstone of survival. Instructor, the Ventraxian hesitated. I confess I did not expect to learn actual survival skills in this course. I anticipated a demonstration of technological solutions with minimal risk. That would have been training, Maya replied. This is education. She moved to the entrance tunnel, checking the structural integrity. The storm outside had intensified further, wind howling like a living thing as it battered their shelter. Yet inside, the temperature remained stable, the air clean, and the occupants safe. Commander Thrix's voice came over her private comm channel, breaking through the interference with difficulty. Sergeant Chen, the Centaurian administrator, sounded concerned. Status report. 23 cadets accounted for. Sir, Maya responded. All alive, most recovering well from initial exposure. We've established sustainable shelter and secured supplementary resources. A pause then. The Academy Board is impressed. Our sensors indicate complete technology failure across the test zone. By all standard metrics, this should have been a catastrophic scenario. Standard metrics didn't account for traditional knowledge, sir, Maya replied, unable to keep a hint of satisfaction from her voice. Indeed, Thrix acknowledged. The storm is expected to maintain its intensity for at least another day. Extraction cannot proceed until conditions improve. Understood, sir. We'll be ready. As she ended the transmission, Maya surveyed the bustling shelter. Her alien students moved with growing confidence, applying centuries-old human techniques with their own unique adaptations. Zik and the Ventraxians had developed an efficient snow-melting system for drinking water. The Ardulians had perfected a method of reinforcing the snow blocks with crystalline structures that mimic their own biology. The Medusans had discovered they could use their bioluminescence to create effective lighting throughout the complex. They were learning, adapting, and surviving. Maya settled near the central fire, watching as her students worked. In the flickering light, species that had evolved on worlds light years apart collaborated using techniques developed by humans who had never left Earth. It was, she reflected, exactly what the galactic